it's Rob with Road Dirt, and continuing our series in working on this 2002 Suzuki SV650S. Got some updates for you. In the process of working on it, I've learned some things about electrical systems and ignition systems in bikes. I've never been all that electrically minded, but this has been a good experience for me. Been learning some things. What we had originally done was we had taken off the flywheel, the alternator rotor flywheel, thinking that it had lost some magnetism. The alternator stator had been replaced in it, and we were thinking, well, maybe the flywheel, maybe it's losing magnetism. So I checked in with the guys down at Rockdale Cycles in Conyers, Georgia, and they said it's rare that magnetism gets lost in these alternator rotors, and they tested it. Everything's good. They tested my stator for it, said it was great. In fact, the one that came out was fine, so there's no problems with it. One of the ways you can tell that if a stator goes bad is that around the edges, in here, I don't know if you can see if I can get a better look right here. Change this thing down and have a look for you. Still learning how to use this. There we go. What these guys tell me happens is that around the perimeter of the coils, that they'll be scorched and kind of burned and blackened. Well, that wasn't the case. Obviously, that's a brand new one, so it's in good shape. And it wasn't the case, let's get back here, with the old one actually either. It was in good shape. So, it turns out, hold on a second here, the problem we had was this little jewel right there, called the Rectifier regulator. The guys at Rockdale Cycle took a look at it, and they said you've got a crack right along in there in the silicone and the sealing, and it's starting to bubble a little bit. He said you got a diode that's blown in there. That's your problem. It's kind of reminds me of back some years ago when cell phone batteries used to go bad. If you remember, it happened to me a couple of times where the battery would kind of, you'd take it out and the thing would be all kind of bloated and blown up on the inside. And you could tell, man, it was gone. It was shot. And he kind of likened it to that's what happens inside these rectifiers, is that they'll overheat, and over time they'll just kind of blow a diode down in there and kick the bucket. So kind of like those old cell phone batteries. I guess that's why they put them in a fairly easy place on bikes to be able to get to them. The one on this one, I'll show it to you. Let's see if I can get around over here. Hold on a second. It is right there. Is the brand new one. And of course that's obviously, hold on here, on the outside. I'm still trying to learn how to use this thing, so bear with me. On the outside of the frame right there, so easy place for it. So anyway, coming back together, and I'm learning how to use a smooth mobile. You have to excuse me. So anyway, next thing is getting it back together. We actually got the alternator rotor back in. Let me get back around over here where you can see. Got that baby back in there, and thought it was going to be pretty difficult, but after some finagling and wiggling, lining up the pins and everything, it eventually, boom, popped right back in on top of that starter clutch, and then ran the bolt back in. And now I'm going to run this thing back on it, line it all up, and run the bolts in, run the screws, the bolts back in on it, and put that portion back together. So let me get this up here so you can see. Hello again. I'm an old guy, so I put my specs on so I can see what I'm doing. Now let's get this baby back on there. See if we can line up the pins and everything. Get it all lined back up. I think it's good. All right. And she goes. All right. Back on. Looking good. All right, let's I'll run these back in now, and then we'll start reassembling all the little clutch assembly and everything on it, and start putting this thing back together. Next order of business is we've got to come up with a fairing piece, because this piece of fairing was just completely ground up and broken into several pieces from an off that my friend had on it once. So anyway, thanks for tuning in, and stay tuned for another episode of Road Dirt on YouTube. Rob Brooks, Road Dirt, signing off.